Hi Senior Stage, it's Gail here. I'm going through the answers of the work on changing the subject. This is exercise 2. In x plus 2 equal to a, we need to make x the subject of the formula. That means we need to get rid of the 2, and to do that we subtract 2 from both sides. On the left side we have x plus 2 minus 2, and on the right side we have a minus 2. What you do to one side, you do to the other. On the left side, plus 2 minus 2 equals 0, so we just have x is equal to, on the right side, a minus 2. And now we're finished. In x minus p is equal to 5, we need to make x the subject. To do that, we need to get rid of this minus p, and so we add p to both sides. On the left side, x minus p plus p, and on the right side, 5 plus p. On the left side, we have x is equal to 5 plus p. In c is equal to x plus a, we need to make x the subject. This time it's on the right-hand side, but we're not going to worry about that until the end. To get rid of the a, we need to subtract a on both sides. We're subtracting a on the right side to get rid of the a, and so we must do that on the left side as well. On the left side we have c minus a, and on the right side we have x, because a minus a is 0. And that is the same as saying x is equal to c minus a. In question 4, 5x is equal to b, and we need to make x the subject. 5x is 5 times x is equal to b. To get rid of the 5 here, we need to divide by 5 on both sides. On the right we divide by 5, and on the left we divide by 5. On the right, 5 divided by 5 is 1x is equal to b over 5 on the right. And now we're finished. Question 5, 3x plus a is equal to b, and x needs to be the subject. The first thing we have to do is get rid of that a by subtracting a from both sides. On the right, 3x plus a minus a is equal to, and on the left, b minus a. On the right, we have 3x, and plus a minus a gives us 0, so it is just 3x is equal to b. 3x is equal to 3 times x, so to get rid of that 3, we will divide both sides by 3. On the left, it's 3 times x divided by 3, and on the right it is b divided by 3. On the left, 3 divided by 3 is 1x, and on the right is equal to b over 3. Question 6. T minus 2x is equal to s. We need to make x the subject. The first thing that I'm going to do is get rid of this t over here by subtracting t from both sides of the equation. On the right, I have t, and I'm going to subtract t. Minus 2x is equal to s and minus t. What you do to one side, you do to the other. On the left, t minus t is 0, and so I have negative 2x is equal to s minus t. On the left, I have negative 2 times x is equal to s minus t, and I want x by itself. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. On the left, you've got negative 2 times x, so we're going to divide by negative 2, so that the negative 2 divided by negative 2 will give us 1. And then we must remember to divide by negative 2 with both of those terms. On the left, negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1x. And on the right, I have minus s over 2, or negative s over 2. Over here, two negatives are being divided, so it's plus t over 2. This looks better if you write the positive term first, so it's t over 2 minus s over 2. Question 7 is ax plus b is equal to 4. We need to make x the subject. The first thing is to subtract b on both sides to get rid of the b. So on the left we have ax plus b minus b, and what you do to one side you do to the other, so on the right we have 4 minus b. The result of that is on the left minus b plus b gives you 0, and so you are left with ax is equal to 4 minus b. You have to divide by a on both sides, and then you must remember on the right hand side to divide both terms by a. So on the left it is ax divided by a, and then on the right it's 4 divided by a and minus b divided by a. On the left, a divided by a is 1, x is equal to 4 over a minus 4 over b. And there's your answer. Number 8, f is equal to ex minus g. X must be the subject. To start this process, we're going to add g to both sides. On the left, f plus g, and to balance that on the right, we're going to add g as well. The result of that is on the left, we have f plus g is equal to, on the right, ex. Remember that we're still trying to make x the subject of our formula, and x is sitting over here, so we need to divide both sides by e. On the left, we must divide both of those terms by e. We divide by e so that the two e's will divide and give you 1, and then f must be divided by e and g must be divided by e. On the left, we have f over e plus g over e is equal to x. And you need to write that so that x is the subject. X is equal to f over e plus g over e. In 9, you've got x multiplied by the bracket a plus b is equal to c. Don't be tempted to use the distributive property on that bracket. If you do, you're going to land up with a situation that's going to be hard to untangle. I'm going to show you. If you multiply x by a, you get ax. And if you multiply x by b, you get bx. And that is equal to c. Now you've got two terms with x in it, and that's going to make things a whole heap more difficult, so we're not going to do that at all. If you look at the left-hand side, you've got x multiplied by a plus b is equal to c. So if you divide the left-hand side by a plus b divided by a plus b will equal 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. And then you do the same thing on the right-hand side. Let's see where that gets us. So we're going to divide by a plus b on the left-hand side, and to balance it, divide by a plus b on the right-hand side. A plus b divided by a plus b is 1. So on the left-hand side, we have 1x is equal to, and on the right-hand side, we have c over a plus b. The brackets at the bottom are not really necessary anymore, although it doesn't matter if you leave them there. In number 10, you have 8b plus cx is equal to d. There's x that we have to make the subject. The first thing is going to be to subtract this term, 8b, from both sides. On the left, it's 8b minus 8b. And we balance that with minus 8b on the right. On the left, 8b minus 8b is 0, and so you're left with cx is equal to d minus 8b. To find x, you need to divide by c over here, and because remember that is c times x. So let's do that. Divide by c here, and divide each of these terms by c. On the left, you have c divided by c is 1, x is equal to d over c minus 8b over c. In number 11, we have 3 multiplied by a bracket, x plus b is equal to a. So the last time we had a bracket, we didn't multiply out. But this time, x is in that bracket, and so we've got to get it out from the bracket before we can make it the subject. Our first step will be to use the distributive property, and 3 times x is 3x, 3 times b is 3b, is equal to a. Now this looks more like the ones we've been doing, where x is over here, and we only have one term with x, and so we can solve this. We're going to subtract 3b from both sides so that it leaves us with the x term. Then on the left we have 3x is equal to, on the right, a minus 3b. We're going to divide by 3 on both sides so that we have x. And remember to divide each term on the right side. On the left, 3 divided by 3 is 1x is equal to a over 3 minus 3b over 3. You should be able to see that you've got 3 over 3 divided by 3 here, so it's 1b. Our answer in this case is x is equal to a over 3 minus 1b. That second term can simplify. Number 12 is very similar to number 11. If you compare them, the structure is the same. So you have a multiplied by a bracket, x plus b is equal to c. You need to make x the subject and x is inside the bracket. Use the distributive property to get x out of the bracket, so it's ax plus ab. A times x is ax, a times b is ab, is equal to c. Subtract ab on both sides so that you can get the x term by itself. On the left side, subtract ab, and you subtract ab on the right side to balance it. On the left side, ax plus ab minus ab gives you 0, so the answer there is ax is equal to c minus ab. You need to divide both sides by this a here so that you can get x by itself. On the left, divide by a and divide each term on the right by a. On the left, a divided by a is 1x is equal to c over a minus, and here you have a divided by a again, so it's 1b. In 13, you have a is equal to x over b, with needing to make x the subject. X is divided by b, so to get rid of this b, we are going to multiply both sides by b. On the right, we multiply by b, and then to balance, we multiply by b on the left as well. That gives us on the left ab is equal to b divided by b is 1, and so we're left with x. Remember that x has to be the subject, so you write it the other way around. X is equal to ab. Number 14, px over q is equal to r. X must be the subject. X is multiplied by p and divided by q. The first thing we're going to do is to multiply both sides by q so we can get rid of this fraction. On the left, it's px multiplied by q, and to balance that, we multiply the right by q as well. On the left, q divided by q gives us 1, and we have px, and on the right, we have rq. To get rid of the p in front of x, you are going to divide both sides by p. On the left, p divided by p is 1x, is equal to rq over p. In number 15, P plus Q is equal to X over R. X over R is the same as X divided by R. So to separate X from this R, we need to multiply by R. On the left, we must multiply each term by R. So it's PR times QR is equal to XR over R. On the left, we have PR plus QR is equal to R divided by R is 1x. Making X the subject, you write it the other way around. X is equal to PR plus QR. In number 16, you have X plus P over Q is equal to R. And we have to make X the subject. If you have a fraction line also operates as a bracket, and I'm actually going to write those brackets in because it's easier to understand. So on the left we have X plus P over Q is equal to R. The first thing we want to do is multiply by Q so that we don't have a fraction where X is. So we're going to multiply by Q on both sides. On the left, we have X plus P over Q multiplied by Q, and then we multiply by Q on the right as well. On the left, Q divided by Q is 1, and so we will just have X plus P, and now we don't need that bracket anymore, is equal to RQ. Subtract P from both sides, so on the left we'll have X plus P minus P, is equal to, on the right, we have RQ minus P. On the left, P minus P is 0, which just leaves us with that X is equal to RQ minus P. If you want your maths to be perfect, you'll write RQ in alphabetical order and make it QR minus P.